My short week as an electric trucker begins. I just stopped by the office to pick up my papers for the trip, and I'll be driving from Leer to Freiburg, which means traveling across Germany. But first, I have to move my things from my weekend home to my work home. My Iveco was in the shop, and now it's missing the wheel covers that I like having because I often have to reposition the truck without a trailer. They somehow ended up on the other Iveco. Thankfully, they're just clipped on, so I'll quickly swap them back. You can also see in the back that the energy storage units have been installed. Here is where the connection comes in, and the control electronics are also housed on this side. On the other side, you'll find the inverter and rectifier, which handle the power conversion. You can see the individual modules here. They're screwed in but can be easily pulled out. Each module has a capacity of 6 kilowatt hours, and together they form the battery pack. There's another identical setup on the other side, which brings the total capacity to roughly 1.6 megawatt hours. I'm surprised by how modular it all is. I expected industrial storage to involve huge forklift-sized battery units like the ones in electric trucks. But these modules seem small enough to be handled by hand, maybe even without tools. And today is a very special day, because after an extended weekend, I can finally drive my truck again. I've already found my trailer. It was tucked away in the far corner. I've hooked it up, and I spotted the FM Electric with its nice red tarp. I'm also driving with a red tarp again. I actually had a plan B ready. If the Iveco had been stuck in the shop longer, I would have taken the FM Electric and driven it across Germany. I've swapped the wheel covers, completed my pre-trip inspection, checked that the trailer is empty, and now I'm ready to hit the road. I always appreciate when people think ahead. Either someone at Iveco or in our dispatch team charged the truck to 95% after it came back from the shop, which means I can get going right away. According to my info, they replaced a wiring harness that runs from the charging port to the distribution unit that connects to the batteries. Apparently, there had been occasional issues with charging sessions getting interrupted, so they replaced it as a precaution. I personally never had any trouble with it, but better safe than sorry. It seems they also optimized the 24-volt battery management system. Previously, it would recharge itself over the weekend even when it wasn't necessary, so now that's been adjusted to save energy. The trailer is already 3/4 loaded, so I'm taking some time to organize my things. I also want it to be nice and quiet in here. So with this lovely Iveco, there's a little pair of pliers, and here is the blue fuse for the amplifier. One quick fix, and this vehicle's driving comfort is massively improved. Toll, oder? I'm just before Cologne, and tomorrow I need to make a delivery in Freiburg, so quite a bit of distance to cover. I've already driven over 300 kilometers, or 186 miles, and the battery is at 36%, meaning a theoretical range of about 500 kilometers, or 310 miles. During loading, I was able to take a break, so my 4.5 hours of driving time reset. I now have 1 hour and 11 minutes of driving time left, and my destination is 1 hour and 3 minutes away, leaving me an 8-minute buffer. There's a new Aral Pulse charging station near Bad Honnef that my contact at Aral Pulse recommended. I could probably drive for another 3 hours, but it will already be 7 p.m. by then. I think I'll just park somewhere for the night and start fresh tomorrow morning. Driving late into the night after an early start today doesn't seem like a great idea. It's best not to drive when you are getting tired. I was recently at the IAA, and Germany's Federal Minister for Economic Affairs Robert Habeck was also there and mentioned me. I couldn't believe it until I saw the video.
My department head follows the truck driver Tobias Wagner on LinkedIn, who's enthusiastically sharing updates about his e-truck. Every time he charges it, he takes a photo of the charging station. According to his calculations, he saves 37% per kilometer compared to diesel trucks.
I've arrived in Bad Honnef, which is located up on a hill. That means there's a steep climb before you get here, so it's good to know in case things ever get tight. This isn't a place you want to reach on your last kilometer of charge. I've driven nearly 400 kilometers today and still have 22% battery left. I'm currently carrying 10 tons of trees, which I'll be delivering to 2 drop-off points. So, the load isn't maxed out, making for a relatively relaxed drive. I now have 2 minutes left to my destination and 11 minutes of driving time remaining. Just need to find the charging station. This is a regular rest stop with a lot of Aral Pulse charging stations, which I think are pretty easy to access with a truck. There are even Ionity stations here, where the electricity would actually be cheaper. Does it mean if I come here for Aral Pulse but end up charging at Ionity instead? It's kind of funny because technically cars aren't supposed to be here. That's actually one advantage of the megawatt charging system. Cars won't be able to use those chargers. But what does that car have in the back seats? Are those dummies? That looks kind of creepy. Unfortunately, the charging station didn't work and made some strange noises. I ended up driving a bit further back, and now I'm charging here for the night. I just asked the driver with the dummies, and those dummies are used to measure the acoustics inside. They are needed for the microphone placement at ear level and used to test new materials for interior soundproofing. It's pretty interesting to see how much quieter an electric vehicle can get, especially since you can hear every little noise that would usually be drowned out by the combustion engine. I'm not sure if I'll stay at this location since it's not actually the truck stop but the truck wash, which is getting busier with more and more trucks. Most likely, I'll just park somewhere else. But this charging area is optimal, though still with some teething problems. I'll let them know about it, and they'll probably send a technician for a service check. A drive-through charger is super practical, but at night before rest, it's not ideal. This parking lot is filling up, and if I need to move the truck later, it will probably be completely full with trucks. So, during the day, it's perfect. Drive in, charge, and keep going. But overnight, it's much better to detach the trailer, park it at a nice spot, charge, and then head back to the trailer. So, unhooking definitely has its advantages. I'm charging the last bit this morning, but I was only getting 200 kilowatts, so I moved the truck, which wasn't easy because another truck parked in a tricky spot, but now I'm charging at another station at 300 kilowatts. But a feature that's really needed is displaying why the charging power is not outputting its maximum kilowatts. Whether it's because the vehicle's battery is cold, the charge level isn't optimal, or because of issues with the charging infrastructure. If it's the charger, you can do something about it and use another one. If it had been the truck's fault, I would not have to repark and could save my time. It is a simple function that every electric truck or charging station should have to make life easier. I also got some cool information from Aral Pulse about how their reservation system works. Here's a quick screenshot of what it looks like in the Alpatronic charger when the charging spot or port is reserved. It's also great when the charging station supports multiple languages. On this station, even Finnish or South Korean truck drivers can figure it out. I think that's awesome. Many stations only offer German, English, and maybe French, but having more languages available is much needed. The plan for today is set. I'm heading to the first unloading point, which is about 300 kilometers away, and I'll make it within the driving time limit. Then I'll head to Freiburg and take my lunch break there. There's an Ionity rest stop where I'll probably need to unhitch. If I can't get in due to height restrictions, there's another Aral Pulse a few kilometers down the road as a backup plan. I'll be able to unload in Freiburg by early afternoon, and should even have enough time to pick up a new load. It's shaping up to be a relaxed day. Once you know where you're going and where to charge, everything falls into place. It's a relaxing morning vibe with the sun coming up and little traffic. And I've been thinking a bit more about how I'll adjust my charging strategy. Those drive-through charging parks, like we just saw, are definitely cool because you can drive in and charge easily, but they don't offer as much value as you'd think. Typically, I do 2 charging sessions, one during the day when I take my 45-minute break, but when I charge at night, the truck traffic can be really heavy and it turns into chaos with trucks parking all over the place. So going to charging stations at night isn't ideal, especially because the last charging session takes the longest. You can also do a hybrid approach like I did today, where you arrive, plug in, and maybe take care of other things like brushing your teeth or showering, but that can be stressful if the parking lot starts to fill up. The downside of that is that if you have to go back to the station in the morning, you face 2 problems. First, you're completely dependent on the station working because everything is so time sensitive, and if something goes wrong, you get stressed. Second, you're still half asleep, and it's not ideal to have to immediately move the truck in the morning. So, I'll just unhook my trailer at those rest stops in the evening and then go back to the charging station. So far, the model of charging parks just doesn't line up with the reality of night charging. It's also funny how people want to overtake right at the start of the hill, while I'm driving with cruise control on and mine doesn't need to shift. I could even accelerate up to 90 here. Some truckers really overestimate their trucks. Since we're going downhill, I've got some interesting information. I have a contact at Iveco who gives me all the cool info about the truck that I don't know. Last time, I complained that the regenerative braking doesn't provide maximum performance when the battery is fully charged. Instead of 600 kilowatts, it only provides 400 kilowatts. But it's actually pretty impressive that despite a full battery, it still has 400 kilowatts available. It uses a similar system to the Mercedes e-Actros, with heating resistors or immersion heaters that are suspended in the coolant to absorb excess energy when the battery is full. Because you want to avoid breaking away the energy into the mechanical brakes, ideally you want to have a wear-free braking system, so it has 2 immersion heaters with 70 kilowatts each, totaling 140 kilowatts. So even though regenerative braking would be lower with a full battery, these heaters help maintain the regenerative braking performance. I think it's fascinating how they've technically solved this, as it's definitely possible to find yourself at the top of a hill with a full battery. Major respect to the engineers at Iveco for thinking about this. It's amazing how much technical innovation is packed into these electric trucks, solutions we've never needed before. And especially for hills, Mercedes has a GPS-based cruise control system, and Volvo also has IC system, which allows them to recognize where the inclines are and adjust acceleration accordingly. But to be fair, it's not as critical for electric trucks because the truck simply drives at a constant speed, goes up the hill relaxed, comes down the hill relaxed, and regenerates energy. Of course, I could try rolling down to gather as much momentum as possible, but that's all within the context of a combustion engine, which can't regenerate energy when going downhill. So, I think these systems are probably not as important for electric trucks as you might think. Plans have the great quality of sometimes not working. I've been stuck in traffic and there was also a lane closed for construction which made me lose 50 minutes. Now I won't make it to the first delivery point because I'm 7 minutes short, which is pretty annoying. I could probably justify it by making a note and explaining that there was traffic, but technically I shouldn't take a break since I need to unload. So I'll just take a quick lunch and charge break before heading to the first delivery spot. Then I'll go straight to the second delivery spot so I won't lose any time. And if I would arrive just before 12, that would be a bad time anyway because a lot of people take lunch breaks. This is definitely one of the less optimal charging spots. I drove around the back since it was pretty tight in the front, and I'll have to back out again. So it's good that the Audi is leaving because it would have been in the way later. This was the only option. Reliable charging infrastructure is the backbone of electric transport. Right now, the truck is charging at 207 kilowatts, which could be due to various factors like the charging station or the plug. But at this location, I can't just park somewhere else. The reliability needs to be better if charging operators want to get into the trucking business. If 300 kilowatts is listed, it should be 300 kilowatts. The first delivery point is done, but it took a bit longer because the approach was tricky, where I had to reverse and maneuver a lot. We also ended up using a trick for the short forklift tines. There are forklifts with longer tines that you can add, and they can reach across the entire width of the truck from one side. But another trick is to use a rod or something similar to pull the pallets over. It's a really simple solution as long as the pallets aren't too heavy. The heavier the pallets are, the more likely it is you'll need anti-slip mats underneath. For things like stones, it wouldn't work, but for the trees, it worked just fine. Now I'm heading to Freiburg and should be there by 3:30 p.m. That means I can unload in time and I already have my pickup point for the return trip. You didn't catch the really tight spot earlier. There was a 90-degree curve and a big tree. I'm just glad to be out of there. And I used another neat little trick. If you turn off the truck, the lift axle goes down, and only after reaching higher speeds does it lift again. Right before the curve, I turned off the truck, and the front axle went down, which made the pivot point move further forward. Now I'm driving through beautiful Freiburg, and tomorrow morning I have a pickup point in Oberndorf, which is about 2 hours away. I'm heading in that direction now. On the way, there's the Neckarberg East Rest area, which is quite small, but it has 4 Ionity stations. Ideally, I'd drive there, find a spot, park the trailer to charge, then go get something to eat and enjoy a relaxed evening. But at small rest areas around 7 p.m., it's really hard to find a free spot. There's some road closure right now, so everything is being redirected onto this mountain road, and it's super narrow here. But I find it really picturesque, and in the electric truck, you can actually hear the river stream outside. It's pure nature. I'm just scared for a 40-ton truck to come around the corner any moment. Krumelix and I are enjoying the break. It's been an incredibly long day. Out of the 4 charging stations, one is completely broken, and the other started at 500 amps, but quickly dropped to 340 amps. It's frustrating, but nothing can be done about it. Krumelix, what are you up to? The load I'm picking up tomorrow is going to the Netherlands. A long distance, but only a few kilometers from Leer, so it sounds cooler than it actually is. This is what I am transporting today. Earth cables on huge cable drums. They weigh around 3 tons, and there are 4 of them. We use up to 3 straps that are crossed to secure everything, and there are anti-slip mats underneath. Since time is running out, I won't be able to unload today, but I'll try to get to Leer within my driving time and have the weekend off. This delivery is also part of the energy transition, because a lot of copper cables are needed for it, even though I'm not sure exactly what they'll be used for. I'm driving almost 800 kilometers today if everything goes as planned, and this is the most relaxing part of truck driving because I don't have any deadlines today. But Friday might have some traffic, so I'm driving a 10-hour shift, which means I'll need to take 2 breaks. I can only drive 4.5 hours at a time, so with 1 rest break, I won't make it. That's actually quite relaxing for charging as well because I can do it whenever I want. So, I'll see what happens, find a truck stop, take a break, grab something to eat, and walk the dog. I'm now here in Bensheim, and apparently this is a good spot to charge the truck. But once again, a car driver has parked exactly at the spot I need. I'll ask him really quick to move. The gentleman was friendly, and he didn't know about the truck charging park because the layout is very similar to the usual charging stations. In the end, Errol probably doesn't care whether a car or a truck charges here, as long as they're making revenue. If everything is full, I can understand cars using the truck charging stations, but they have to expect to be approached about it. Here's another note about the Rhine-Alp corridor I'm traveling along, where there are several charging parks already built and many more under construction. And at this rest stop, also plenty of restaurants here. Plus, if everything were full, there would still be plenty of parking spaces to uncouple. That's how it should be. The charging stop was without any issues, but getting out of there wasn't so easy because there was a Porsche charging next to me. Of course, one might be tempted to tell them to charge somewhere else, but the guy was really interested about the charging power and range of the truck. He said he'd never seen an electric truck before. It made me realize that the guy was genuinely curious. He totally understood that electric trucks will be coming more frequently in the future. He probably thought, I've been charging here all this time and never saw an electric truck. But now he did. I didn't feel the need to rub it in that he should park somewhere else. I think he got it during our conversation. If it's a friendly chat, where the person walks away with lots of useful information, it sticks much better than if some unfriendly trucker scolds them. It's going to take 6 hours and 44 minutes to Leer, but I'm only allowed to drive for 6 hours and 16 minutes today. It's unlikely I'll make up that time, but I'll just let it play out and drive efficiently. We'll see. Otherwise, I have to stop again overnight and arrive Saturday morning. It's such a borderline situation that one could argue to exceed the driving and rest times to get back home. And look at this, there's a spot for me. Perfect. And what a peaceful evening. The truck is now parked, and maybe a little tip for Errol Pulse. If you approach from the front, you might think these are the only charging points and end up parking here with a car, even though the car charging stations are further back. This could be easily fixed. Just like the sign I saw earlier pointing out the truck charging network, they could put up a sign here saying, if you're a car, please park over there. Otherwise, I have the issue that I've lost driving time due to the traffic jam. It was worse than expected. This means I won't make it to the depot, but I'm taking it easy since I wouldn't do much more tonight anyway besides sleeping. So I'll just drive as far as I feel like, find a good rest stop, and spend the night there. Tomorrow morning I'll drive the last stretch, and it should all work out fine. Good morning. I'm still a bit groggy. I drove a little further last night and ended up sleeping at this small rest stop about an hour away from my destination in Leer. It's not a big deal for me since I'd have slept in the truck anyway, but if you have a family or kids waiting at home, it's probably nicer to be there. For me though, having my little buddy here makes it just fine. I'm currently at a rest area with a restroom, and here's why it's interesting. Soon, there will be a nationwide truck charging network in Germany. There's already a tender from the government and Autobahn GmbH to build charging parks for trucks at 350 rest areas. These will include 100 kilowatt CCS chargers for overnight charging, 400 kilowatt CCS chargers for en route charging, and even MCS chargers with at least 800 kilowatts. What's unique is the pricing model. Normally, fueling at the Autobahn is significantly more expensive, so we try to avoid it. To address this, there's a new pricing innovation, the pass-through model. This lets you bring your home electricity contract and pay for the electricity here at your own rates, which could be just a few cents in the industrial sector. This is a complete novelty. Of course, you don't just pay for the electricity, there's also an infrastructure fee since someone has to finance the charging park. It will be interesting to see how high this infrastructure fee is, as it will determine whether truck drivers actually will use it. I've arrived. It's the weekend, so the place is packed with trucks, and there's still some activity. Luckily, a charging spot just freed up, so I'll maneuver a bit since I need to charge on the left side. During my research on the truck charging network, I came across a document showing a complex data model explaining their site selections, such as why specific rest areas were chosen and the expected truck traffic. They surveyed all European truck manufacturers about their expected electric truck registrations in the coming years, and those results are the most fascinating. Over the next few years, manufacturers are planning for more than 200,000 electric trucks. This means procurement and battery cell sourcing are already underway, setting the stage for what's to come. By 2029, they expect to sell more electric trucks than diesel trucks. So if anyone still hasn't realized what's happening, I don't know what to tell them. These are official manufacturer numbers, not theories or third-party studies. And with that fascination, we'll end the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Tschüss!